Hey, this is Sky, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So there's a lot of people that feel like that we are in dark times. There's a lot of people that feel like that shit's worse now than it's ever been before, especially among people my age or older. I'm 48. If you get into talking to men, particularly men who are very nostalgic, that are in their 50s, this is a very strong belief system that currently in 2020, in this era, that everything is on its head, that there used to be these glory days when everything was wonderful. This is in part what a lot of the Trump supporters are crying about with this Make America Great Again slogan, which Trump didn't invent that slogan. That's a Ronald Reagan slogan. You can do your history on that shit. But it's a common belief that has been used over and over throughout my entire life. Now, let's just be accurate here. I was born in 1971. You can do history yourself. I'm very well read in history. I love the topic. In 1971, America was in the Vietnam War, an illegal war, where we had more casualties than we were used to, innocent people dying on both sides, veterans returning with PTSD that had been involved in killing women and children and babies and returning home wondering why they weren't being supported. The streets were on fire with political protests, and it wasn't just the Vietnam movement. There was, and the anti-war movement, there was the anti-nuclear movement. If you remember, in the early 70s, there was a huge debate about nuclear power. 3 Mile Island, I think that's what it was called, in Pennsylvania, the nuclear power plant, that burned down, was it 73, something like that? I remember I was taken to those protests as a kid, and there was the women's rights issue, there was the racial issue, there was a drug epidemic. Heroin was destroying America. Maybe if you lived in some small town or out in the suburbs, you didn't really see some of this, but if you lived in any city in America, any urban center like I did, I lived in Washington, D.C., heroin destroyed D.C., destroyed it. We had white flight in the 50s, so they all moved out to the suburbs, and by the time the 70s rolled around when I was born, D.C. was 96, 97% black. The Parliament, Funkadelic, bands like that were singing songs about it, calling it Chocolate City. The heroin epidemic, the crime epidemic, gangs flourished in every East Coast city, every American city. Gangs were block to block. There were stabbings, murders. The poverty was out of control in America. This is when I was born. So the reason why I'm pointing this out is when people talk about this nostalgia of when things were great, when they think there was this time in America when everything was wonderful, I personally don't vibe with that and don't really understand that, because I'm 48 years old and my entire life, every goddamn second of it has been the same bullshit, just different year. The same politics. You can never trust politicians. People talk about, well, you have to admit it's worth. No, I don't. I don't have to admit nothing like that, motherfucker. I can tell you the same shit that's happening this year was happening 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And if you disagree with me, if you're sitting there with your arms folded, shaking your head, then you live in a goddamn small town, you live under a rock, you're living out in a farm somewhere with your hands over your head, you're fucking facing a wall, you're sitting there, blah, 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 blah. Don't tell me you don't have a cell phone, you don't have a computer, you don't have a TV, you don't have a radio, you don't pay attention to what people tell you at the diner. You're literally a fucking idiot if you don't realize that this shit has been going on forever. And you think, oh, maybe if you're even older than me, well, what about people in their 60s? Okay, let's go back even further. You want to do history? I mean, I could sit here and teach a history lesson. What do you think the 1950s were like? Do you think it was some Norman Rockwell bullshit? I can tell you that all those Norman Rockwell paintings were goddamn fantasies. America did not look like that, at least not in the urban centers. The 1950s were only great if you were a certain class. And that's the way it is right now today. This is the glory days. There's some people in America that believe that right now, in 2020, this is the golden age of America. This is the best time to be alive. This is it. This is what we've all been dreaming of. This is the best version of this country that could ever possibly be. There's people that believe this to the core of their being. And you know who those motherfuckers are? Rich motherfuckers. It's classism. We have a fucking stratified system that goes through classes. And if you're on the bottom, like I've always been, shit doesn't change. When people talk about this, let's get back to a better time and whatever, what better time? The 1400s, before this country was founded? What better time are you talking about? Because it's always been fucked, and it always will be. Now, I'm not just trying to make a video ranting about my politics. The reason why I bring all of this up is because people have this question, this existential question that they always ask, is why do bad things happen? Why do bad things happen to good people? They act like that what goes on outside in society is random. It's all just a product of our own actions. And a lot of times it may not be our personal actions, it may be our neighbors, but everything that you see going on outside you is a product of society. So we create it. We created this society. It's not an accident. The bad stuff that happens in this society is our fault. The good stuff that happens in this society is our fault also. Now, we don't focus enough on the good things. Go watch the news. Go read the New York Times. Go read the Wall Street Journal. You know, Bloomberg or Huffington Post, whatever the fuck you read. It's all bad news. There's never any good news. Now, if you want to talk existentially about this stuff, just for a quick second, good does not exist without bad. The way that you recognize bad is in a field of good. The way that you recognize good is in a ocean of negativity and bad. When you see a world of awful shit, whatever it is, I don't have to list various things that are awful. You can think of them in your own. There's always good among it. You can have a cow pasture full of shit. What grows in shit? It makes the best fertilizer. Plants grow out of shit. Flowers can grow out of shit. Life can spawn out of guano, out of fertilizer. We use shit to grow things. So you can sit there and dwell on the negativity, or you can look for the good. Sure, there might be an ocean of negativity and very little good in that direction that you're looking. But focus on the good and realize that good exists only because the opposite of it exists. Everything exists along with its opposite. Up only exists in relation to down. You would not know what up or down is if you were floating around in space. The only reason why we know what down is because we have gravity and we stand on a planet and we're sucked towards the center of the earth constantly. So we have this notion of that's up and this is down. This is all just very lofty existential stuff. But if you're sitting there thinking about why are things so bad? Why do bad things happen to good people? And you're wandering down that road, getting real nostalgic, wishing that it could be Leave It to Beaver or some fantasy land that Hollywood fed you. Look for the positive. There's good in this world. It's all around you. And all you have to do is recognize it. There's various ways that you can do this to open up your mentality towards looking at both, not just focusing on one. We have a way of just focusing on one thing because the way that our eyes are set up, the way that our brain is set up is that we're narrow-minded. We can only think about one or two things at once. We can only look at certain things. We focus on things like with telescopic vision. We don't see in 180-degree views. We see in pointed views. Physicists get into this. There's, I forget what the percentage is, but as far as human awareness is concerned, we're only aware of like a very small amount that's going around us at any given time. So whether you're sitting at home or walking down the street, you're only really aware of a very minute aspect of reality. There's so much more that could be going on around you that you have no idea and that you've never paid attention to. So focus is everything, outlook is everything, and I've talked about this before in other videos. So I don't want to get too much into that because you can go watch another video of mine, and I encourage you to. I have all kinds of videos about various topics. But I wanted to talk about this existentially and realistically, both on both sides of the coin. If you're focused on negativity and wondering why this country sucks, why your town sucks, why your neighborhood sucks, change your outlook. If you can't find the good in your area, be the good in your area. If you think that everyone on your block is a piece of shit, everyone in your town sucks, everyone in your city sucks, and fuck this city and fuck everybody in it, be the only one in there that's good. Be the good in your town. Be the good in your world. Be the shining light and be the example. Why not? Why join the shit? Remember, flowers can grow from shit. Be that flower. Thanks for watching.